The Digimon franchise has seen outings in almost every media imaginable, beloved for its video games, anime, toys, and more. But I always felt there was one element of the franchise with the strongest storytelling, the fiercest battles, and the coolest art that is often ignored in favour of its animated compatriots: the Digimon manga. I am a huge fan of the Digimon manga, and I am by no means an expert, but I am inviting you to join me on my Digimon manga retrospective, a multi-part series where I look at every manga, manhwa, and other published works in the Digimon franchise to get a better understanding for myself and to hopefully give more people access to a part of the franchise which has been shielded off, usually because they don't leave Japan, at least officially. And today we're starting where it all began, even before Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, with Come On, Digimon. And before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to Buyee, the sponsor of not just this video, but my entire Digimon manga retrospective. Buyee are so phenomenal. I personally use them. I recently used them to buy the Digimon Axel, which is a VPAT I wanted for so long, video coming soon. And they're just a phenomenal service, getting you access to Yahoo Japan auctions and shopping, Mercari, Rakuten, Amazon JP, and tons more. While unfortunately there are no global releases of Digimon manga, I do still like collecting physical media, and if you do too, Buyee is the place to go. And stuff that isn't even Digimon related, if you want it from Japan, Buyee can help. And if you use my link in the description down below, you'll get 2,000 yen, that's $20 US, off your first purchase with Buyee. For anything, do go support Buyee. They have been incredibly supportive of the channel, and them taking a chance and sponsoring not just the channel, but this manga retrospective means a lot to me. So thank you to Buyee, and thank you to all of you for watching, for checking out the link. Let's get on with the retrospective. Come On, Digimon released on September 28th, 1997, the same year that the Digimon V-Pet was released. Though the first manga outing for Digimon, it actually isn't the first Digimon story that was published. That distinctive honour went 20 days earlier to Digital Monster I'll Become the Digimon King. That, while is just a guide for the V-Pets, also featured an original set of characters, and both were illustrated by Tenya Yabano, though the original Digimon designer was of course Kenji Watanabe. These early Digimon designs in particular are fascinating to me. Different designs for Meramon, Agumon, Seadramon, Airdramon, Devimon, Tyrannomon, Betamon, Botamon, Numemon, a really interesting Koromon which looks familiar, and more can be seen in the Digimon King art and were later revisited in Come On Digimon, and thank you to JP Excelsior for pointing this out. Of particular note to me, however, is this original design for Greymon, which I'll touch on more in a bit, and this original design for Metal Greymon. I will be doing a video solely focused on the Digimon King guide and its entire story, and while technically it's the first story, I have heard rumours that Come On Digimon actually appeared slightly before, but wasn't fully published until afterwards, but I'll do a video dedicated to the Digimon King guidebook, and Lost in Translation Mon is helping me out with translations on that. They are amazing. I'll put a link to the description to go check them out. Even though they're not translating for this video, they're translating for the Digimon King video, but just go check them out. They've been really cool and really helpful when they didn't have to, so I do appreciate it. In many ways, you could say that the character Digi featured in Digimon King is the original Digimon protagonist, but given their publishing dates being in the same month, it's hard to say which between Digi in Digimon King and Kentaro in Come On Digimon, but I would say the true honour falls to Kentaro. As I mentioned, Come On Digimon was illustrated by Tenya Yabano and written by Hiroshi Izawa, both who would go on to create the legendary V-Tamer manga. Much of the planning and conception of Digimon media in general is hard to find information on, but we are lucky to have some interviews with the creators, and one in particular, called Digimon Production Secrets 4, was conducted by Digimon game producer Kazumasu Habu during the release of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Should note that this interview was conducted towards Watanabe-san and Yabano-san. Izawa-san was not present. This is more like an artist's interview. My eternal gratitude to Garm of Garm's Translations, who translated this interview. Not for me, they just translated it of their own free will. Thank you so much, Garm. I'm only covering the segment of that interview relevant to Come On Digimon, but you can read the full thing in the link in the description down below. Another Digimon adventure, a story featuring Taichi and Vidramon. Habu. To start off, I'd like to ask Yabano-san, how did you get Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01 to be serialized in V-Jump? Yabano. My first experience with working on Digimon was drawing drawing illustrations for the guidebooks. Quite a while before that, I had worked with V-Jump regarding illustrations, so with those connections I eventually got tasked to work on a manga for Digimon. Your one-shot Come On Digimon was published in the second volume of Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01. It was made before planning for Digimon Adventure had even begun, when the whole concept of Digimon was still new and not fully developed. Because of that, the Digimon in that one-shot looked very different from the Digimon we see today. Watanabe. The characters feel very different as well. Yabano-san, were those all created by you? There were the illustrations that Watanabe-san did up, though he told me that I'm free to change the designs if I like. He then laughs. So they're pretty much original designs then. Right. The Digimon names and characteristics had already been established, but since I was told that I was free to change them if I liked, I thought, why not? Back then we couldn't check on each other's work via email, so I would only see the work in its final form and think, oh, that's how it turned out. The one-shot was serialized in Akamaru Jump, but I remember my delight when I heard Digimon was to be turned into a manga. But their Digimon manga origins were much more humble than the sprawling adventure of Taichi Yagami that would unfold in the many pages of Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, and then over several seasons of the Digimon anime. As stated in the interview, Come On Digimon is a one-shot, focusing on an interesting protagonist called Kentaro Kamon, a boy who doesn't seem to love animals and especially has no interest in Digimon. While Kentaro is our protagonist, another driving force of this one-shot is a young boy named Makoto Abe. If Kentaro is the progenitor of Taichi in the following decades of Digimon leaders, the bespectacled Makoto is very much the prototype Koshiro Izumi, his intelligence and passion for Digimon going hand in hand. What is fascinating here though is that the Digimon inside Makoto's V-Pet, or as they're called in Come On Digimon, Docs, is a Greymon called Hard Armor 3. Interesting how Greymon cemented itself as an early important Digimon, but as is pointed out in the preface segment when Come On Digimon was republished during V-Tamer's run, this Greymon greatly resembles what would go on to become Zeromaru the Vidramon in V-Tamer. In fact, there are many moments in Come On Digimon which one can very directly trace to V-Tamer, but also the rest of the Digimon franchise. And while many of them are just kind of tropes in general that many anime and manga fall into, I don't think all of these are straight from Writers 101. These were things created for Digimon which have had echoes for decades. I highly encourage you to read Come On Digimon yourself. It's only around 40 pages. There's a link in the description where you can read it yourself at your leisure thanks to some wonderful fan translators. I'll give you a second to pause the video and go and read it. Go on! No watch there, what am I doing? Okay, so, as you'll know by now, having read Come On Digimon, it features the villainous Shinichiro Josaki, who works for Josaki Electronics. We open the one-shot with him in the back of a van, destroying not only his opponent's Meramon with his Deathmon, but his opponent's V-Pet dock entirely. After this dark opening, we shift focus to a school, Makoto and Hard Armor 3 in a battle against a Seadramon. I think it's really interesting how early the idea of nicknames was established, something I always found odd to see in the video games because it wasn't done in the anime actually has much more basis than not using nicknames. Everyone at school is obsessed with Digimon, except for Kentaro Kamon, a cool, aloof kid who doesn't care for anyone or any animals and hates the older kids who smoke and leave their lit cigarette butts lying around. Remember that for later. Makoto offers Kentaro his dead Digimon's dock so Kentaro can get in on the fun, but Kentaro callously throws it back at him, intimating Makoto doesn't care about his Digimon because it's dead now. At first, this may seem too dark or too mean-spirited of a move for a protagonist to do, but I think as we move into the story and learn more about Kentaro, retroactively this scene makes a lot of sense. I will touch on that chronologically, but bear that in mind for now. Kentaro storms off and the kids in school remark he covers his arm due to some injury, perhaps a dog bite? This black arm cover in particular was taken as part of Taichi's design in V-Tamer, as is once again noted in the details page that preceded Come On Digimon's reissuing in V-Tamer. Eventually, of course, Kentaro gives in and accepts the dock in his pocket. Makoto then shows him the only part of this manga that kinda jumps the shark for me, a 3D visualizer that Makoto's brother, a graduate at the Science University.
I work down at the University of Science there.
Just the Science University, no need to get specific. Made to allow Digimon in the V-Pets to come to life, or at least appear to, and Kentaro's unique Digimon Bun appears. Side note, when Bun first appears, he says the onomatopoeia Mokyu. From what I can gather, Mokyu is a kind of cute sounding onomatopoeia. Any people familiar with Japanese and onomatopoeia, please do correct me in the comments down below and I'll pin your comment. And while of course Digimon don't say their names like Pokemon do, I do think Mokyumon would actually be a pretty good name for Bun if he were to get a real Digimon name. Bun being a nickname. There is no Mokumon right now, so I don't know, my little headcanon is that maybe his name is Mokumon. Though Bun's anonymity and existence being a mystery is also very fun. Kentaro christens him Bun for a reason we also found out later in the manga. I feel the 3D visualizer is an early compromise when the idea of a digital world was less cemented, or possibly not cemented at all, as a way to have kids and Digimon interact with each other, but I think it's a weird sell, especially as later we see Bun interacting with the real world. Like, did it actually make him a full flesh body, or is he still code? Questions I'd like answered by the creators. The next day at school, Kentaro hears Makoto losing in the Josaki Electronics van. He is battling Shinichiro and is losing. Here we're introduced to Deathmon, and this is where I like to talk about the parallels between Shinichiro and the antagonist of V-Tamer, Neo Cyber. It's kind of funny to me that Shinichiro is the rich kid heir to a company, and he quite clearly went on to inspire Neo Cyber, who is the villain of V-Tamer. Cyber kinda rhymes with Kaiba. Maybe we'll start calling Shinichiro Neo Kaiba. You're a third-rate tamer with a fourth-rate V-pet. But Shinichiro and Neo look very similar, behave very similar, at least how Neo behaves early on, and the way Deathmon absorbs other Digimon to become stronger is incredibly reminiscent of how Arcadimon functions. Side note, I like that when Deathmon utilizes the power of Digimon he's defeated, he becomes Death Meramon, for example. It's almost like a really early version of the Digicross naming convention. It just made me smile that you could track back something like Digicross all the way back to this one-shot. Tragically, Hard Armor 3 is destroyed before it can become Metal Greymon, and Makoto's dock is destroyed too. And while it might just be because Come On Digimon was never explored as a full run, Hard Armor 3 really does die here. He's never magically revived. It's really quite sad. Kentaro, of course, is enraged and vows to defeat Shinichiro and Deathmon. Thus begins the training montage. Him and Bun grow closer. Makoto gives him tons of training guides and regimes, but Kentaro realizes that it's also about what Bun wants and trains him thusly. What is interesting about Bun in particular though is that he doesn't digivolve. Can't digivolve. Shinichiro later remarks that he may be a badmon, and this is again where we can see the seeds of what would become the mighty oak that V-Tamer would explore. I won't spoil V-Tamer. We'll do that when I cover it in a video. But if you've read both, I think you can see pretty clearly the parallels between Bun and Zeromaru. Zeromaru is also my answer to people that say that Bun should never digivolve, by the way, and that he doesn't necessarily need it to be strong enough to defeat Deathmon. So while yeah, it's kind of cool that he doesn't digivolve, there's not actually like a huge lore reason that he couldn't break through his Badmon programming and digivolve further, and I think it'd be really interesting. People want to see Calumon digivolve, and Calumon's whole thing in Tamers is that it doesn't digivolve, it's the spirit of digivolution. I think that would work really well for Bun too. Rather than getting a lot of digivolutions, just one digivolution at the end of a full run of Come On Digimon would be really interesting to me, but if you disagree, I totally get that. I also like that he just can't digivolve. I'm happy with both. I have two hands. At last, Kentaro faces Shinichiro. Shinichiro calls Bun a badmon and defective, but Kentaro defends him. Clearly his school friends had him wrong. Kentaro doesn't hate animals at all. The battle begins and Deathmon demonstrates its ability to change forms with the data of Digimon it's slain, but Bun goes toe-to-toe with him. Shinichiro busts out Death Metal Greymon, which by the way is the coolest name for a Digimon ever. Death Metal Greymon! This is where Shinichiro reveals he's not just been defeating Digimon, but researching Kentaro, and here's where it all comes together. Kentaro doesn't hate animals. He loves animals, but he does hate smokers. Kentaro's beloved dog Bun died in a house fire caused by a discarded cigarette butt. While certainly darker subject matter for a kid's manga about a virtual pet, I think it all comes together very well. Sure, the exposition may be a bit lacking in depth, but it makes for a really compelling protagonist. The tragic backstory of a beloved dog dying in a fire in Bun's spirit reminded him of that dog is powerful. Maybe because I've lost dogs of my own in my life, I don't know, something about it just really touched me. It also, I think, is echoed but made far less dark in the origin story for the adventure anime Tai and the others, supplanting Bun the dog with the giant Agumon/Greymon who died to protect the kids. There's a through line there, I think at least. As Shinichiro heats things up with Death Meramon, he remarks how this new Digimon Bun is as stupid as Kentaro's old dog who died in a fire too. Damn, this Shinichiro kid is like an Iraqi villain, huh? And then we get more to the story. Bun the dog died dragging Kentaro from the fire, and the bite mark is where Kentaro got his dope scar from. Bun was the goodest of boys, and so is Digimon Bun. Kentaro and Bun defeat the dumb rich kid and the day is saved. The manga ends with everyone enjoying Digimon in school, but it is remarked that despite beating Deathmon, Bun always seems to lose in his dock. And that really is it. That's all we ever saw of Come On Digimon. As I've touched on, a lot of these elements got folded or adapted into V-Tamer or even Digimon Adventure, but I still wonder what might have been. Did Josaki Electronics have greater ambitions involving Deathmon or more? Did they maybe make the V-Pet docks? Would Shinichiro have gone on a similar path as Neo Cyber or something completely different? Unfortunately, we'll never get those answers, but I almost think that Come On Digimon's strength lies in that. A progenitor. An original crack of a proper, engaging Digimon story that came solely from a toy created for little kids in 1997. And if you did want to see more, I think it's safe to say you get a lot of what you're looking for in V-Tamer. So, while brief, I think Come On Digimon retains a hugely important part of the Digimon franchise's history, and its echoes are felt even right through today in Digimon Adventure 2020. And that's all I have to say about Come On Digimon. Let me know your thought down below. Is this your first time hearing about Come On Digimon? Your first time reading it? And which Digimon manga would you like me to check out next? Of course, I'll be checking out all of them and the manhwa and guides and all sorts of other stuff. Which is your favorite? Which would you really like to see me cover? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you again to our amazing sponsor, Buyee. And let's thank some channel members. My amazing DigiDestined level channel members, Triple D, Night 12, Andrew Sobel, Sad Uncle Callum, Crimson Dragon Slayer, and Anthony Bontomasi. Thank you, DigiDestined. And my Tamer level channel members, Errant Harpy, NQG420, The Blessed Rain, Sam Mallow, Nagel, Emily, John Hawkins, Mike McNulty, Theo Navarro, and Reese Williams. Thank you so much, Tamers. And to everyone in the Karn Club, thank you so much for supporting the channel. And I'll see you next time when we go digital.